There are moments in professional sports that stop you cold, not because of a dramatic finish or a record-breaking performance, but because of something that simply should not be happening in the first place. This past week at the RBC Heritage, in Hilton Head, South Carolina, one of those moments played out in broad daylight, and if you follow golf at all, you already know it left a lot of people shaking their heads. Brooks Koepka, a five-time major champion, one of the most recognizable and decorated players in the sport, stood on the grounds of Harbortown Golf Links on Thursday, watched other players tee off while he waited for a phone call that never came. He did not get into the tournament. He packed up and went home. And the reason why is a story that goes far deeper than one missed starting field. To understand what happened at Harbortown, you have to go back a few months. When Koepka made the decision to leave LIV Golf and return to the PGA Tour in early 2026, it was a significant moment. He had been one of the most prominent names to defect to the Saudi-backed circuit back when that whole situation exploded a few years ago. His return was seen by many as a signal, maybe even a turning point, in the ongoing tension between the two tours. But the PGA Tour did not exactly roll out the red carpet. His reinstatement came with real conditions attached, conditions that he agreed to, and conditions that have now come into focus in a very public and uncomfortable way, under the terms of the PGA Tour's returning member program, which was formally established in January of 2026. Players coming back from LIV cannot simply step back into the full privileges they once had. They cannot accept sponsor exemptions into signature events. The big money, limited field tournaments like the RBC Heritage, that carry $20 million purses and feature only the top players in the world. Instead, returning members have to earn their way in through performance-based pathways. For Koepka specifically, that means qualifying through a ranking system called the AO Next 10, which tracks FedEx Cup standings of players who are not already in a given field. After his tie for 12th at the Masters the week before, he was ranked 20th on that particular list, which put him right on the bubble for Harbortown. Here is how the alternate system works in this context. The RBC Heritage field accommodates players from positions 11 through 19 on the AON Next 10 list. Michael Thorbjornsen was the last of those to get into the field when Justin Rose withdrew earlier in the week. That withdrawal moved Koepka up to the first alternate position, meaning he was literally one more withdrawal away from teeing it up. Keith Mitchell and Taylor Moore were also present as additional alternates, because the returning member program includes a specific stipulation. If Koepka enters a signature event, it cannot come at the cost of a spot belonging to a fully credentialed tour member. So the field would have expanded to accommodate all three of them if one more player had pulled out, and so Koepka showed up at Harbortown. He was there on Wednesday, spotted hanging around the course. He was there Thursday morning when the first round began. He waited, he watched. When the final pairing of Max Homa and Sudarshan Yelamaraju walked to the first tee at 2:10 in the afternoon, and nobody else had withdrawn, that was it. His window officially closed. A five-time major champion, fresh off a strong performance at Augusta, walked away from a $20 million tournament without hitting a single shot. Now, some people will hear that and immediately say that a deal is a deal. Koepka knew the terms when he signed back on. He agreed to these conditions voluntarily. The tour has rules, and those rules apply to everyone equally. Regardless of how many major trophies are sitting on your mantle, that is a completely fair and reasonable position to take. Nobody forced Koepka to leave for LIV in the first place, and nobody forced him to come back. He made his choices, and the PGA Tour made its policies clear. If you step away from this tour to join a rival operation, getting back in is not going to be seamless. That is a message the tour has been sending loudly and consistently. And you can make a strong argument that walking that back for any individual player, no matter how famous, would undermine the integrity of the whole system. But there is another side to this, and it is one that is harder to dismiss the longer you think about it. The PGA Tour is a business, is a product. It sells competition, drama, star power, and the promise that the best players in the world are going to show up and go head-to-head. The RBC Heritage is a $20 million event. Networks are broadcasting it. Sponsors are paying enormous sums to have their names attached to it. Fans are tuning in and traveling to Hilton Head, and one of the most well-known golfers on the planet. A man who has won 5 major championships and who just finished 12th at the Masters 7 days earlier, could not get into the field while he stood right there on the property. That is a real tension. And it does not resolve itself neatly just by pointing to the rule book. What makes this even more layered is the broader context of where professional golf finds itself right now. Live Golf has been struggling. There have been persistent reports throughout 2026 about the circuit's financial situation and its uncertain long-term future. When Koepka left Live and came back to the PGA Tour, it was a notable moment precisely because he had been such a visible figure over there, and yet his reintegration has been bumpy. The financial costs of his return have been documented, including a $5 million charitable donation as part of the arrangement. He gave up access to certain tour equity programs, accepted restrictions on how he can enter events. And now, just weeks into his return, he is standing outside the ropes at one of the biggest tournaments of the spring. What Koepka himself said publicly in the days leading up to this was actually pretty interesting. He was not angry, at least. Not outwardly. Speaking around the time of the Masters, he talked about how much more he was enjoying his golf right now, about how his happiness off the course had translated into a better experience on it. He seemed genuinely positive about being back, and he was not publicly griping about his situation or pointing fingers at the tour. That measured, low-drama response is worth noting because it would have been easy for someone in his position to go to the media and start complaining. He did not do that. Still, the optics of what happened Thursday are difficult for the PGA Tour to fully shake off. The golf world is interconnected enough that players across both circuits are paying attention to how returning members are being treated. Jon Rahm is still at Live. Bryson DeChambeau is still at Live. Tyrrell Hatton is still at 54. These are names that the PGA Tour would presumably love to have back, competing on its biggest stages. But if you were one of those players and you watched what happened to Brooks Koepka at Harbour Town this week, you are asking yourself a very practical question. Is going back worth it? You would be giving up guaranteed money and a schedule built around your preferences, and in return, you would be entering a system where even a top-level performance at a major the week before is not enough to guarantee you a spot in the next signature event. The PGA Tour's position is essentially that the rules exist to protect the members who stayed, who honored their commitments to the tour during a very turbulent period, and who deserve to have their standing respected. That argument has genuine merit. The players who did not leave for LIV made a choice to, and they should not be penalized for it. The returning member program was specifically designed to make sure that players coming back do not simply parachute back into full privileges and leapfrog over people who stayed loyal. The fact that the field would have expanded to let Mitchell and Moore in alongside Koepka shows that the tour was trying to think about fairness systematically. It's not just shutting the door on one specific player. But here's the thing. Professional golf is not just a governance issue. It is a spectacle. And spectacles need their biggest stars visible and competing. Not standing on the sidelines in warm-up gear watching other people play. There is something uncomfortable about a system that produces that outcome, even if the system was built with good intentions. When casual fans or TV viewers hear that Brooks Koepka was right there at the tournament and could not get in, they do not immediately think about the nuances of the returning member program or the FedEx Cup ranking thresholds. They think the sport did something strange, something that does not make a lot of intuitive sense. The question going forward is whether the tour adjusts any of these terms, or whether situations like this one become a recurring feature of the 2026 season. Koepka is scheduled to play in the Zurich Classic coming up next, which is a team event and a full-field tournament with different entry criteria, so that should not be a problem. But the signature events are where the real stage is. They are where the money is, where the television eyeballs are, and where a player can actually make a significant impact on the FedEx Cup standings. If Koepka keeps finding himself stuck on the outside of those fields through the rest of the year, It becomes a storyline that the tour is going to have to address one way or another. None of this has an easy answer. The PGA Tour made commitments to its existing membership, and those commitments matter. Koepka entered into an agreement with full knowledge of the restrictions, and respecting that agreement is important for the credibility of the whole returning member framework. At the same time, professional golf is competing for attention in a crowded entertainment landscape, and boxing out one of its most recognizable names from its marquee events is a cost that shows up in ways that are harder to quantify than a rulebook violation, but just as real. This is the kind of tension that defines where the sport is right now. Still sorting through the aftermath of a split that shook the entire ecosystem. Still trying to figure out what fairness means in a world where billions of dollars in competing business interests are all pulling in different directions. What happened at Harbour Town this week was small in the grand scheme of things. One player, one tournament, one week. But it said a lot about the complicated road ahead.